Kotaku, how can you manage to suck so much? Now, in the past, I've managed to defend a lot of gaming websites. I think that the journalism and investigations they manage to do are deep and important, but other times, these websites churn out utter, literal dumpster fires. And today, we're going to be digging into the confusing crybaby behavior of Kotaku when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, at this point, I've put about 55 hours into the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've beaten the main game, I've done a lot of the side quests, and now I'm working on a hardcore playthrough. It's pretty obvious I love the game, and I've been having fun this weekend because it seems like everybody on the internet is having a blast. I mean, all of Twitter is just completely aflame with people tweeting out memes and great moments and screenshots of just how gorgeous this game is. But amidst all that, Kotaku has found a way to just continually get wet eyes about this game. So what we're looking at right now is an article that went viral yesterday that I wasn't going to respond to because it's just so stupid, but I feel like it deserves a little bit of critique, which is this. Now, the title you're seeing here had to be changed because of the backlash. The original title was "The Easy Mode is Just Too Easy." Now, okay, so let's face it, I've talked about difficulty in games a lot. I think that there is such a fine line between accessibility and ultra simplistic mode. I do think that games should provide some form of challenge and not just be an interactive movie. That being said, Final Fantasy VII is a very unique game. This is a famous storyline that a lot of people have never had a chance to experience, and already I've been seeing people say, hey, I'm somebody with disabilities, or somebody who's like, hey, I just got into gaming and I want to see the best game ever first, but I don't know how to do it. Easy mode is clearly in there for people who just can't beat normal. This isn't for people that are lazy. It's literally in the game so the developers can still allow their masterpiece to be seen. But somehow, this manages to really kind of make Kotaku sad. Now, the reason I'm making this video isn't just because this article itself is stupid, but if you go into the past of Kotaku, you notice that they talked a lot, especially over the course of this last year, about how they're pretty sure that the Final Fantasy VII Remake wasn't going to be that good. I've gone through a bunch of their articles. This one here is called Final Fantasy VII Remake is a Double-Edged Buster Sword, and they talk about how bigger budget games might sort of taint the purity of a game that was always kind of a tinier gem. This is so crazy to me. It's like saying, hey, a bigger movie can't be as entertaining. This is so stupid, but the one that really gets me is stuff like this. Final Fantasy VII Remake's box sure is misleading. The box art released this morning for the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is out March 3rd, 2020, is killer art, but if you saw it in a store, you'd have absolutely no idea that this is actually part 1 of the remake. Well, Jason Schreier, I'm glad the game is out now, and it's pretty obvious that the reason they did this is because each of the games is going to be fundamentally different. The story in the Final Fantasy VII Remake manages to diverge. It manages to be fresh and cool and different. So why would you put part 1 on a box that isn't telling part 1 of an original story? This is a new game, and yet at the time you decide to write this giant viral article of information that just isn't true. I don't really like the term fake news, but sometimes Kotaku, you seem a little bit like fake news. But let's get back to this main article. The difference between Final Fantasy VII's easy and normal modes is too drastic. Now get ready, this is a little bit of a strangely written piece, mostly because it definitely has a whininess to it that doesn't really seem to have a point. I spent 40 hours playing through the Final Fantasy VII Remake, mostly on normal mode, the highest difficulty initially available. A no items hard mode unlocks after completing the game once. I burned through potions and character reviving Phoenix Downs as I battled robots, mutant creatures, and Shinra soldiers. I was forced to repeat many of the game's boss battles after my party had wiped, regrouping, switching out weapons and materia to make sure characters had the right tools at their disposal. It was challenging, but never dull. Now, I think that the difficulty is pretty well balanced. I'm not sure why you died so much, but hey, as long as you were able to keep beating it, good for you. Then came the dogs. Towards the end of the game, there's an encounter with a bunch of Shinra bloodhounds. It's not a boss fight, just a regular encounter between Aerith, Tifa, and a bunch of genetically modified puppets. The two characters separated from the rest of the party were quickly overwhelmed by snapping canine jaws again and again. There were just too many of them. I barely had time to get their ATB gauges to the point where they could use items or cast spells. Here's like a nice little screenshot of that moment. As Jason Schreier mentioned in his incredibly helpful tips post, there is no shame in switching to easy mode for this battle. After reloading from the game over screen 5 times, that's exactly what I did. The dogs, which tore my people apart time and again, went down in under 30 seconds in easy mode. I didn't use spells, I didn't use special abilities, I barely had time to do so. Basic attacks, highly ineffective in normal difficulty mode, ripped those dogs apart like they were tissue paper. As I'm entering the game's home stretch, I wanted to complete it quickly so I could dish with Jason about the ending. I left easy mode on and continued to be ridiculously simple. Okay, so this sounds like a you problem. You turned it onto easy mode and now have decided to write a giant article about how easy mode is a freaking joke. If you go into a freaking pizza parlor, are you going to complain about the pizza? Now, rightfully so, everybody on Twitter is absolutely dunking on this article. I mean, the fact that this is even a piece is kind of hysterical because it seems to misunderstand the point of difficulty options. I'm a big fan of the idea that hard games should really try and simplify difficulty. If you're going to be trying to make something that is purposely challenging, like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, this is a game that celebrates a good dodge or a complicated multi-phase boss fight. These are things that manage to really kind of celebrate and show off the harder side of what video games as their art form can be. But let's face it, the Final Fantasy VII Remake was never advertised as being this tough, Dark Souls-y game. I mean, the point of it from the very beginning was to take the beautiful city of Midgar and blow it up to a 30-hour experience. The idea from the very beginning was to create new side quests, lore, and great combat systems for people to enjoy. I'm still just kind of baffled because what is your problem? How is it that you turned the game onto easy mode and somehow you're upset about how easy it is? Now, if we're just being completely honest here, of course I'm a little bit biased. I love the Final Fantasy VII Remake a lot. I just put up a huge review of it and talked about the ending in a separate video. It's a thing that I've put a ton of time into, and I've really had, well, a lot of hours to appreciate what they were going with it. These articles trying to dismantle it for absolutely no reason to me seemed contrived and quite frankly pointless. I think that every game deserves criticism. I'm definitely a big believer in the fact that the more you're able to critique a game, the more it can be polished. I think that some of the best games that have really been blowing up, things like The Division 2, which still has a very diehard fan base, watching some of the changes in big Blizzard projects, I mean, these games manage to get better by having people come out and constructively say, this is what needs to get better. And yet, articles like this isn't trying to improve Final Fantasy VII, it's one guy trying to complain. You know what's funny is, even people who are huge fans of Kotaku, people who are really big on like, yeah, let's prop this up or whatever, these people have also kind of started to point and laugh at this article because, I mean, it's so dumb. I mean, I hate to use an insulting term here, but could you imagine sitting down and telling your boss at the gaming website, hey, I'm going to write an article about how this game is too easy when I put it on easy mode. This guy's boss said, yes, I will absolutely pay you to write an article about this freaking joke of a topic. There is some stuff in Final Fantasy VII Remake that absolutely deserves to be torn apart. There's definitely issues with textures. There's definitely issues with some of the stuff with, I know that some people have already found some ways to exploit the ATB system, but trying to act like these tiny issues somehow manage to disrupt the experience is just flat out not true. Okay, well, I just wanted to get this out of my system and go back to celebrating the fact that this game is out. I'm still just kind of loving it. Thank you everybody who's been sharing my review. It's over 100,000 views in 4 days now, which is absolutely bonkers. And thank you everybody who's been sending me the Final Fantasy VII memes. It has been a very good time. As somebody who grew up completely obsessed with this saga, it's so weird to see part 1 finally out. And now I guess it begins the long wait to Final Fantasy VII Part 2, or whatever they're going to end up calling it. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. I'm thinking about doing one last follow-up video, by the way, maybe in like 2 weeks or so. I'm gonna finish doing everything in Final Fantasy VII. I want to actually beat every quest, get every achievement, every trophy, every collectible, every weapon, and then beat the whole game on hardcore mode, and then maybe do a final video just called like Final Thoughts on Final Fantasy. Let me know if you think that's a good idea. I don't know. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.